welcome you and call to order the March 12th, 2019 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clausen, I think, wants to make an amendment to our agenda due to our audience.
I do. I'd like to move the executive session that's scheduled right now to the end of the last of the meeting.
To the end of the meeting.
Second.
We aren't planning any action after that, so. So we have a motion and a second to move the executive session to the end of the meeting. Further discussion of that?
Is that just a good standing practice then, perhaps?
Got folks that want, there was a reason why we put it first initially, but that reasoning had changed since we published the agenda. And we have folks in the audience that probably don't want to wait around while we go through.
I think it's a good practice if we want to consider.
Well, I think there are situations that come up occasionally where if there's an action item that we need an executive session prior to.
I would agree, but if there's no action, then maybe we should look at it.
Yep, so, okay, with that, all in favor of moving that item to the end of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Mr. Crocker.
I might have to step out of that meeting then.
Okay,
I had daycare, childcare issues, so I was hoping we were doing it front.
you can be excused whenever.
We can excuse you.
All right, we are, any other amendments to the agenda that's been published?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Are there any objections to the approval of the agenda as amended? I'm twisting things up on you guys. I see
You
your
are.
faces. Okay, hearing none, the agenda as amended is approved by unanimous consent. You have to
I
vote.
thought you'd been listening to Cole.
I've been listening to Cole.
Cole was rubbing off on you, is that it?
That is. So we have the agenda approved. We are at citizen comments. So anyone wishing to address the council for anything on the agenda, please identify yourself for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Steve Siegel. I'm a resident of South Kitsap, and I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the proposed code that you're going to be reviewing. And I also wanted to report that there's some large graphics missing from a presentation I made last night, and there they are. I don't know how they got here, but nice home. So I do want to address, last night I was part of a group, and many of you were in attendance, that talked about a proposed project for our community called the Community Event Center, the South Kitsap Community Event Center. And this was part of the discussion. I want to make a point that the reason this is here is because you enacted the mixed-use pilot program that created an incentive and an interest in investors and others to spend their resources and expertise to come up with an idea for the redevelopment of downtown Port Orchard on the waterfront and to build a community event center. And tonight you're going to consider the adoption of the new code that's built upon the foundation of that project, that program, the mixed-use pilot program. So I just want to encourage you to know that, oftentimes you propose a new idea or a new zoning, and you do your best to make certain it fits, and then you cross your fingers and hope it works out. Well, you've had a chance to see it in action, and it works. And I know it's not exactly the same articulated zoning and code, but it certainly does reflect where that was heading initially. So I want to encourage you to support that. I also want to speak in behalf of a couple of other applicants who can't be here, who are working right now in the city to provide additional housing, including some affordable housing in Port Orchard. And they're very supportive of the code, and one of them wanted me to share with you, and this is the applicants for the Geiger project who are trying to work through with the staff the application of the new code, that you might consider, and this is a Nick kind of question, but you might consider going forward that there's some latitude to fine-tune aspects of the code that may need some updating depending upon their application and impacts as you kind of put things to work, sometimes there's a few bumps in the road, but that was the expectation or a suggestion that you might consider that process. And again, I don't know how that works, Nick, but thank you all for the hard work you've done. You've opened the door, and we hope to see additional investment in this community thanks to your efforts.
My name is Gary Anderson, and I wanted to just continue with Steve's thoughts on that, on the work you've done to provide incentives for people to want to invest and develop in Port Orchard. And I can tell you without reservation that there's a palpable difference today from where it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. And the interest level of people who express a desire to come to Port Orchard, they want to understand the opportunities, hear more. Those kind of questions come up all the time. And you've provided things that now are in my toolbox that I can share with them that give them a reason to want to come to this town and spend their money here. Investors and bankers, they measure risk and reward. And in the past, it's been difficult for them to look at Port Orchard and notice that the risk level was higher than the reward that they perceived, and so they would choose not to take the risk to realize the reward. That's changing, and it's changing for a number of reasons. The passenger-only ferry is an element, the work that you've done on the code and the mixed-use pilot program, opportunity zones. So there's a lot of things that I can talk about with investors that really, truly make the difference, and you guys are a big part of that. Thank you very much.
Your comments?
My name is Noel Larson. I'm a resident of downtown Port Orchard. I also want to encourage the adoption of the zoning update. Having lived in Port Orchard for 15 years, I witnessed the stifling effects of the code in the past, and the updated zoning code provides means for achieving the desired change that's been debated for as long as I can remember living here. I used to come to the council meetings, and we talked about how things, weren't going to work. Over the years, it became clear that the gap between the city and the people interested in investing in the city was the issue. And in the end, after all those years of debate, the issue preventing desired change can be summarized very simply. #It doesn't pencil. The updated zoning code bridges this gap, and it provides options that do pencil and are also desirable, I think. It is well organized and clear, and it provides flexibility while ensuring high quality development. I've read through the code. It's very easy to follow. It provides a lot of options for what a developer can do here. The zoning code update will create the opportunity necessary to attract investors, I now being one of them, while fostering vibrancy in the community and providing better variety of options to build to. As a resident, I look forward to the transformation of Port Orchard into the community I always hoped it would become. And as an investor, I look forward to working with the city to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Robert Baglio. I know a couple of times I've come up here and talked in opposition of some various things you guys are doing, but this time I'm talking in support. So, I'm here to go ahead and support the update in the zoning code. It's exciting what's going on here in Port Orchard. It really is. And I would like to once again take my hat off to the City Council. You guys have taken a leadership role in that, and sometimes that's not an easy thing to do. But we're moving forward, and things are looking good, and I think we're moving obviously in the right direction. And Nick has worked hard on this updated code, and it seems to provide a lot of flexibility, and I know he's also been open to some of the suggestions and whatnot as it's been reviewed. So I am certainly in favor of that, and thank you very much for moving ahead with it.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Commenting on anything on this evening's agenda? We've got a second comment period at the end for all our other items. With that, I will close the public comment period. We are to the consent agenda.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion of the consent agenda? Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent.
This is a change in how we're.
I really.
I won't do it in the business items, but
Reforming it.
you guys paying attention. I have a quick presentation of a proclamation for our Community Service Day on April 27th. The city is excited to announce the Port Orchard Community Day Service Day on April 27th, 2019. This is our fourth such activity. It'll be at 8 o'clock, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. Don't be late, because the Latter-day Saints
We'll be here
show
at
up on time and they work hard. So there won't be anything left to do by 9:30, I don't think. So although throughout the city's history, churches, fraternal organizations, service clubs have made numerous improvements in our community, making it a better place. By all of us coming together on a single day, we can really make a difference in the beautification of our city. The designated locations for improvement will be McCormick Village Park, Cedar Heights Middle School, Van Zee Park, downtown, planting flowers with the Merchants Association, South Kitsap High School, and beach restoration in Annapolis, and to Rockwell Park. Pick your project and visit one of the sites throughout the day and help with trail maintenance, weed removal, shore cleanup, spread various materials, or plant flowers. The city is encouraging all citizens to participate in helping to beautify our city by bringing your gloves, your tools needed to get the job done. If you can't participate at one of these locations, citizens are encouraged to come together throughout the city to clean up their neighborhoods, local parks, or other community areas. I, Robert Patonsu, Mayor of the City of Port Orchard, do hereby proclaim April 27th, 2019 is Port Orchard Community Service Day. So we are on to, we don't have any public hearings, so we're on to our first business item. The first is the adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Title 20, including repealing chapters and adding new chapters, repealing interim ordinances, repealing ordinances, and amending the zoning map. Mr. Bond.
Thank you very much. Tonight, we are at the end of a long road to update the city's zoning code. This project began in May of 2018, but I think I've been thinking about this since I arrived in 2013, so a good 5 years of studying the city and looking for opportunities to improve things. I'm not going to get into all the details because this has been discussed so extensively at Work Study, the Planning Commission, and through the public process, but I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, I've been following the legislative session that's currently underway, and there's a lot of legislation dealing with housing affordability and various land use issues, trying to make housing more affordable and increase the supply of housing. And I think that everything that I've read, for the most part, whether it has broad support or it's an idea that doesn't have broad support, I think we're on the leading edge of doing a lot of things to address housing affordability. Whether it's accessory dwelling units and backyard cottages or allowing duplexes in single-family zones. I think there's a lot of things in here that should help, as some in the public have said, make projects pencil better and also make housing more affordable, but also make the city more fiscally sustainable by having more development per acre within the city, so that you distribute water system costs and improve property tax revenue per acre. So I think this is a good step moving forward for the city. I handed out a number of things that are on your dais. There's the first item. We received an email from Code Publishing. We sent for review the draft code, and they pointed out about 2 pages worth of Scrivener's errors that we would like to fix. Unfortunately, this came after the packet went out on Friday, and so we didn't have an opportunity to get it to you until tonight. So with that email that has those Scrivener's errors is a blue memorandum. We've revised the motion for adoption, the suggested motion, so that it also includes fixing those errors. The second issue before you tonight, and that you may influence how you make your motion on this ordinance, has to do with the zoning map. There's 2 versions that have been provided. We received a late request from a property owner on Bethel. This is the property, a large property adjacent to the China Sun Buffet restaurant, and they're requesting that the back half of their property be commercial mixed use rather than commercial heavy. Staff supports this proposed request. It is, the property, when we looked at it, it was a large piece of property. We thought it would be suitable for commercial heavy, but it is bisected by a large wetland complex, and so they wanted the flexibility to do residential on the back half, which the mixed-use zone affords, and we think that that makes sense. And so alternative, map alternative 2 is what we're recommending in the motion. Finally, when the packet went out, unfortunately, I was on vacation last week, and 2 chapters were omitted from your packet. They were included in the work study packet and online, but somehow they didn't come out in the packet that was emailed to you and on the website. That's chapter 20.34 and 20.58. That's the residential zone chapter, as well as the temporary use chapter. With that, I just want to thank everybody for their hard work on this. I think the Planning Commission, the Home Builders Association, and various stakeholders, everybody who participated in the survey, thank you for being involved, and I think this is really a very forward-thinking zoning code. So I'm happy to answer them.
Mr. Diener.
Mayor, I move to approve an ordinance adopting the 2019 updated zoning code as presented with the alternative 2 zoning map and corrections to Scrivener errors as identified by the Code Publishing Company.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Rosa Pepe. Comment? I guess as a motion maker, would you like to comment first?
Well, I think that there's been a lot of good work done over many, many months. I think it was done very deliberately and cautiously. There was a great field trip that was involved in seeing what could be. I think that it's taken a while to get here, but we're finally here, and it's great to see that there is such support for it. And I'm excited about it.
Councilmember Ashby?
Yes, I do have some comments, and I too want to express appreciation to the staff and the Planning Commission and all the members of the home builders and development community for their participation and support. I do have just some things I would like council discussion on. The first is simply another Scrivener's error. It's on page 125. It's under section. Obviously, staff was trying to decide if they wanted a 7 or a 6, and they left one of the numbers in parentheses with the question mark behind it. I think that should just maybe go away. It's under 20.39.345 overnight lodging. It's under the second bullet point. It doesn't affect anything. It's just a Scrivener's error that can be removed.
6, behind 6, there's a question
Yeah,
mark.
yeah.
And the reason for that is our existing code defined bed and breakfast as up to 7 rooms. The model code we were working off called it up to 6 rooms, and so we wanted to make it consistent with our old code.
Which is it?
So which is it?
It's going to be 7, so
So
6.
the 6 in parentheses, it
Goes
really
away.
needs to go away, because it does say 7.
It's in
That-
brackets.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in brackets, you're right.
That was just.
Yes.
And then, so that I don't think requires a lot of discussion. I just wanted to point that out. The areas that I would like some discussion on, you will find on pages of our packet, 131 and 132. And I'm taking you down to the bottom of page 131 to 20.39.615, home occupation. And home occupation is defined as a home occupation provides a service or product that is conducted wholly within the dwelling unit. Customers and employees coming to the dwelling to conduct business are not allowed. So that's what a home occupation is. And then we have the next section, 20.39.620, are home businesses. And a home business provides a service or product that is conducted wholly within a dwelling that requires employees, customers, clients, or patrons to visit the dwelling. Okay? So a home business in my mind, is like a barber shop, it's like a hair salon, you know, and then we have some bullet points under here. I would like to point out bullet point number 6, and it says, no employees of the business shall work on the premise, where the definition says a home business provides a service or product that requires employees, customers, and clients. So I would like to go through all of these and then we can have a discussion. Okay, so that just seemed to be in conflict to me. And then if we go down to number 9, it says no more than 6 clients a day are permitted to visit the home business. So that seems limiting to me. I'm thinking of Rick Wyatt, who used to be in the city council, has a barber shop. I'm not sure he can make a living with 6 clients a day. So I would like us to discuss whether we want that, not want that. So, and then, before we start our discussion, and then I'm assuming we will have individual motions on all of these things. If you go all the way over to page 148, this 148 of our packet, it's going to be under 20.134.100, general requirements. Now, this section is talking about ADUs. It's all about the uses that can happen in ADUs. So if we go down to number F, it says home occupations. Home occupation shall be allowed, subject to existing regulations. However, for residential ADUs, if both the main residence and the ADU contain home occupations, only one of the two is permitted to receive customers on the premises. Well, if you remember, our definition of home occupation does not allow employees or clients. So, and this, the way it's worded here, does not allow a home business. So I'm thinking, so that's the point for my discussion. Those are the 3 points I wanted to talk about. Do we want?
Well, I think we should take them probably one at a time.
Okay,
So,
I wanted to introduce all of them because they,
so back to
They wiggle about.
131 was the first, correct? Is that where that first one was?
It's actually on 132 in
it's
that
on
section.
132.
Number 6.
But, okay.
131 just
You're
is-
fine with everyone's fine with the home occupation definition. You were just pointing out what that definition is.
Correct.
Okay, and then so on 132, the first discussion point you wanted to have, which number was that?
6.
Number
6.
6. Okay, no employees of the business shall work on that just seems in conflict.
I think that the distinction is that under the opening paragraph, it says that employers, customers, or clients to visit the dwelling, which is different than them working at the dwelling. So I think the idea is that you don't have employees in your home business. The employee works off-site, but they occasionally visit the business along with customers and other people. I think the question would be, do you want to have a restriction on somebody having employees in their house as part of a home business? And
I
so-
would, yeah, and again, just going to personal experience, there was a while when I was doing mortgage lending and also bookkeeping. And the mortgage business actually was in a residence. It was not in the city of Port Orchard, it was in a residence. But no clients were met there, but the loans were processed there. And I did bookkeeping there. So there was a loan processor on site and a bookkeeper on site occasionally. So is that something we would want or not want in a home business? I don't know, I'm just throwing it
The
out.
client visiting,
The client
be-
doesn't visit, yeah. The
Okay.
client's like a hair salon.
yeah, and I get that one. And so you had another bookkeeper there on site in addition?
We had someone who processed the loans, who made sure the title policies were
Yeah.
good, the appraisals were, did all of that. The loan officers were out and about greeting people elsewhere, and then I happened to do the books for that particular broker. And I would go in and use his QuickBooks and do his, do his books.
So you had one person who lived in the home who was an employee?
The owner,
Yeah,
correct.
okay. And then how many other employees worked in the home?
One full-time, one part-time.
Okay. So 2 + 1?
Yeah.
Essentially.
So I don't know, I'm just throwing
It
this
does
out.
create parking,
Correct.
and it creates activity, probably
Neighborhoods.
not consistent with a neighborhood setting. I'm just,
Right.
playing the devil's advocate
Yeah,
here.
and I don't think it's unusual to have a limitation on the number of employees capped at a lower end. I mean, you wouldn't want, 10 or 12 or 15 or anything like that. I mean, I'd be happy at the lower end with, 3 or 4, given the impacts to a neighborhood. It seems like a lot.
That seems like a
That
lot.
seems like
Yeah,
a real lot.
I would be more comfortable with 1 or 2.
Is that 2 including the person who lives?
No, in addition to
In addition?
Mr. Vaughn.
employees, basically.
Yeah, so I think changing 6 to say no more than 2 employees in addition to the owner or primary occupant may be employed in the home business or on the premises.
I can support that.
Okay.
Others comfortable with that, not comfortable with that?
Then I would make a motion to restate bullet point 6 in that section to say, no more than 2 employees of the business shall work on the premise in addition to the owner.
Second?
Motion and a second. Further discussion of the amendment?
I support the amendment, but I'm still trying to understand why we would care how many employees of the business worked on the premise in the first place. Now, I understand impacts like parking. That's something quantifiable, but let's say that these are people who took the foot ferry from Bremerton and walked up to your house, and so why does it matter how many are working in your home?
But this code applies to the entire city. It wouldn't be just
Okay.
to somebody that could walk.
Right, but he's saying,
True.
saying if
see,
someone
okay.
took the bus.
Or let's say you live in a huge mansion with parking for 10 people on the premise, off-street. Why would we care how many employees are parking there or working there? So that's where I'm stuck at. I'm wondering why we're limiting it, or why we want on one size. And I'm comfortable with the 1 or 2 or 3 to 4 in a general, but I'm still trying to figure why should we care as long as there's no parking impact?
For me, I guess, what's the reality of what's gonna happen? We don't have a lot of mansions in Port Orchard that have off-street parking for 10 vehicles. So I think the majority of the facilities that this would apply to are gonna be more in the residential kind of areas where parking of anything more than 2 is gonna be an impact.
I would also go back to, I didn't make note of who said it, whether it was Rob or Steve or Noel, but we can be open and we can put this in there, and then if we find it's cumbersome, we can obviously amend it at a later date.
I agree.
Further discussion of the amendment? The amendment is to modify item number 6 in 20.39.620 to allow up to 2 employees and plus the business owner. So however the attorney and the development director words that sentence, but that is the intent. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment is approved. the next item you had was,
Number 9.
Nine.
okay?
Did you have a number of vehicle trips or visits that?
No, I was just no, I did not. I just, again, two particular things came to my mind. One was Rick Wyatt, and 100 years ago or less, a lady named Cheryl Maxwell had a hair salon, and it was up off of Sydney, back down a little cul-de-sac. They redid her garage and made a little hair salon in there. So she was home when the kids came home from school and stuff. She couldn't have lived on 6 clients a day. I don't know what that number is. I don't know if we care how many clients they see. I think what the concern is here, again, is traffic to the neighborhood. And I just invited the council to think about that.
I think it's important to have a cap. I mean, I can't imagine an unlimited hair salon going on in a garage next to me in my neighborhood. That would be a lot of traffic. And I think that would be the case for much of Port Orchard. So I think there should be a cap. Maybe 6 is not the right number.
And the last item that we put in there, the concern could be, if you didn't have a cap, now all of a sudden you have the owner of the hair salon and 2 other hairdressers in there. Now you got 3, and each one of them is seeing 2 customers an hour. You know,
Yeah,
you can see how
it's a lot of
much
turnover.
traffic and parking that's gonna,
Right.
you know, impact. So there probably needs to be a number, but that 6 could be too low, you're right.
You know, I agree there needs to be a cap. I think, for me, it would be arbitrary for me to pick a number, because I just really don't know what's, but, you know, we talk about hair salons, but I think there's other opportunities of business that would have a significant number of people coming and going, mailbox, you know, the Brown
Delivery.
store, minis, or whatever, that,
But these are home-based businesses here we're talking about. You're probably not gonna do a mailbox store.
So in addition to the barber shop or beauty salon business, the other one I think of is a in-home daycare, which those are capped at 6 children with parents coming twice a day. And so I think, I don't know whether you would count a client coming and going, or whether each time they arrive is a client, but I think doubling it to 12 would accommodate the home daycare and probably the 1-person barber shop, beauty salon.
I would see each parent as a client.
Yeah.
For both pickup and drop off. What if we leave it at 6 and just dial the knobs if we need to later on?
I would probably go up 10, and then, actually I'd go higher if you're looking at a barber shop, because, you know, barber shops I've been at, it's, you know, you're usually working 6 to 8 hours a day, you got 2 to 3 customers. I would go to 20, to be honest with you.
20?
I know it's kind of arbitrary, but people, when they finish their business, do not stay. You know, so that those people are moving along. So it is arbitrary. I agree with John on that, but it's a place to start, as opposed to, you know, you can lower it as opposed to, you know, raising it, but I'm open.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how the city's gonna monitor it anyway. But we would have something,
Complaints.
so if there were complaints, we would have something in code that, you know, we could point to.
What's the current cap? Sorry, John.
oh, I was just gonna throw another wrinkle into this thing. What happens if we approach it from a vehicle trips standpoint versus clients? If people walk up to the barber shop and get their hair cut and walk away, that's not a big impact in my mind.
Very
but-
similar to what Fred said before, right?
Yeah, it's
but
the
that's kinda
number of
nice.
vehicle trips that come and go out of a neighborhood that would be more of the concern.
Does current code have a discussion of home business and a cap on number of visits?
We're looking that up right now.
Isn't it more a matter of how many are at one time, too? Because if you're getting quite a few clients, if you've got 2 or 3 having clients all
Yeah.
at once,
It could be. I think of a tutoring business where you can have a group of kids or people all at once.
So I think Councilmember Ashby made a good point that I don't know how we're going to enforce this. The reality is we're not going to enforce this unless somebody's causing a problem. And if somebody's causing a problem, we probably need the number to be on the lower side in order to be able to do anything about it, because 20 clients a day is a lot to keep track of, and it's, you know, you can cause a problem at 20 clients a day, but you can also, if you have enough parking at your property, 20 clients a day could be fine, and we're not going to notice it or get a complaint about it. So I think the 6 to 12 range is probably adequate, but the lower the number it is, it's going to be easier for us to do something about a problem, versus the higher number, we're going to have difficulty compelling somebody to behave.
What about 10 vehicle trips a day?
Is that a motion?
That's a good suggestion. I was thinking that one of my neighbors has 10 vehicle trips at night, and I hear them after I go to bed, and I hear their car honking, and I was trying to figure out how can we work that into this so we could limit that too.
I'm sorry, Fred. I'm up all night driving.
It's his second home business.
I don't know what it is.
I think I would be a little more comfortable with 12. I mean, if
would too.
if somebody works an 8-hour day, and I'm going to go back to the hair salon, you know, and maybe each person is in there 45 minutes, or maybe, you know, they may not do 2 an hour, they may do 1.5 an hour, and so I was just thinking 12 seemed like trying to put some thought behind it.
My haircuts don't take that long.
No, they don't.
I think 12 is a nice motion. Yeah, I think that's what we're hearing.
Is that
I could support 12, I
Well,
think.
I make a motion 12.
12 vehicle trips? Or
I think we should.
12
was it vehicle trips?
I think 12 vehicle trips makes more sense than
Yeah.
trying to put it.
I could go that.
So I heard,
Oh,
I heard a motion for 12 vehicle trips and a second. Further discussion? Which,
I was sensing some reluctance from Cindy.
The vehicle trips thing bothers me a little bit, because when we're talking about coming and going, I mean, I don't know how many times I just come and go in the day, and I would probably violate this thing, you know, so
but it's only clients.
I get the clients thing, but we're not being able to enforce this anyway. I go back to just, I would rather say clients than vehicle trips. But
I think that was in rebuttal, the vehicle trips was come to because if someone was walking there, are they impacting the neighborhood? Was the
and is
argument.
that the only reason that's in here? Is because of the cars coming and going?
No, it's the impact of the neighborhood. And the impact of the neighborhood would be more due to cars than it is people walking down the sidewalks, hopefully.
Well, I understand all of that, but I'm just asking, is that the only reason that number 9 is in there? That's what we're interpreting it as being right now. But are there other reasons that we haven't
Noise,
discussed?
I mean, I think as people are coming and going, even if they're on foot, there's gonna be noise associated with it potentially, but, you know, I think vehicle trips are higher impact than pedestrian trips, but pedestrian trips have an impact.
Cindy, look at it this way. If we do vehicle trips, we're not limiting the number of clients they can see a day. So if someone can squeeze in 15, that's fine, as long as 3 of them walk.
We're counting.
We're not. It'd be, the only way this is gonna be enforced is if someone's not being a good
Right,
neighbor.
I get it.
And we're getting
I mean,
Okay.
there are
virtually
some-
everything.
We'll
in
see
this-
how this goes anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there are some potential business models out there that could have people coming and going all the time and at different hours of the night. Think about a home-based tattoo business operation where, you know, those are pretty popular. They have a lot of
We
traffic.
had one on Sydney, near Tremont.
It's true. Okay.
All right, so we have an amendment on the floor to number 9 of the same section of the code as we were working on with number 6, to amend it to read, no more than 12 vehicle trips per day are permitted to visit the home business. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment carries. Okay, next one was on a different page, correct?
It was, it's in a
140.
different section.
148.
It's 148, and it's talking specifically here about ADUs. And this one just talked about home occupations, which is why I reviewed the definition up front. This one, just by the definition, the way it reads, home occupation shall be allowed. However,
Which letter was this again?
F,
Yeah.
go
Thank
down
you.
to F. It says only one of the two can receive customers. Well, by definition, a home occupation can't have a customer. So we either need to strike this sentence limiting how many customers can come to the premise, or we need to change home occupations to home business, or we need to include both of them with different parameters.
So what was the intent here, Mr. Bond?
You know, I think that the ADU code was actually written before the rest of the zoning code, and I think it was referring to our existing code language. I believe that home business and home occupation is intended here, and so I think adding this section and making it read home business and home occupation and say that they're both allowed, subject to existing regulations, and then if, I think the council needs to decide whether we want to have a cap to say that you can't have a home business in both the main house and the ADU. Is that important, or is it even likely to happen? I don't know that it's likely or necessarily a problem, but if you consider double the number of residential trips coming and going from a piece of property because there's a backyard cottage, and then you add a business to each of them, that's a significant amount of traffic coming out of one property. But I don't think that's a very likely scenario.
Well, people are creative. And with ADUs, you're also consuming some land that is otherwise sometimes capable of handling parking. If we allow for home businesses to occupy both structures, then I think we're really doubling up potential impacts.
And is that bad? It depends on the neighborhood that you're in and the
And the
amount of
business.
parking
Yeah.
available.
Well, you could have 24 cars coming now.
Some blocks have residents on one side of the street and park on another.
But
So
this is
it's only half.
This is for
the street.
this, all of Port Orchard. Again, we can dial the knobs.
I can support, if we're gonna have a home occupation, I think we should also include home business. I have no problem with that. But I can support it being limited to one of the structures and not both.
I agree.
And then in the future, again, if this becomes limiting to what our residents want to do, we can revisit it. Or I don't know if they could get a conditional use permit or what they would have to go through.
That would require an amendment to the regulation, but
codes,
it's not a difficult change. It just needs to be debated and adopted.
I have a question, and I hope it's not too far off from the topic, but how many people actually apply for home occupation licenses? Does anybody do that?
So, no, it's typically handled through the business licensing and certificate of occupancy process. So we've had a few businesses come in where they want to convert part of their house to be their home business, and there are building code requirements, and so it's addressed as a condition of the building permit. And so these regulations piggyback on the change of occupancy.
I'm also going to say that I think the reason that I spent time more deliberately in this particular section was because when I served on the Planning Commission, we saw the home businesses at that point, I believe, were conditional use permits, and they all came before us. And so we spent a lot of time with them. So that's why it was of particular interest to this section.
You've had some discussion. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to amend this section to read that ADU in its primary shall either have shall be limited to no more than one home business. And one home occupation, or do we want to allow two home occupations? I guess I wasn't ready for a motion.
I think the amendment that you're looking for is under 20.134.100 subsection F. The title of subsection F should say home occupation and home businesses. And then that section should read home occupations and home businesses shall be allowed subject to existing regulations, period. However, for residential ADUs, if both the main residence and the ADU contain a home business, only one of the two is permitted to receive customers.
Home business or home occupation.
Home occupation can't receive customers at all, so we don't need to mention
Right.
it
We
there.
don't need to mention it, okay.
That's what I thought I
Yeah.
heard Scott say.
That's what I was trying to say.
And I would second that.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to an amendment. Further discussion of that amendment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the amendment carries. Other discussion of the code?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would just echo some comments earlier. Thank you for a job well done. I think this is one of the first times I've seen so many people involved in such a deliberate review, and just done very well. So, thank you.
I know some of us have been doing this a while, and it was nice to see comments in favor of the code. So many times we've had testimony against changes to code. So I think it's a credit to Mr. Bond and the process that he went through to get us to here this evening. Even though it did take us a while, I think we've put a very good product together.
And Mr. Mayor, I might add, also, I'm hearing compliments about this outside of this building too, which is, unusual. Last night, for example.
Yes. Yes, all right. So we're back to the main motion, which is to approve an ordinance adopting the 2019 updated zoning code and as presented with the alternative 2 zoning map and corrections to scrivener's errors as identified by Code Publishing, as well as 3 additional amendments. All in favor of the main motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the code is approved. All right, lost my agenda. Here we go. Done with the first one. And we are to 7B, adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, chapters 12 and 20, establish regulations related to street cut memorandum on newly paved streets within the city. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. On January 28, 2019, the city's Public Works Department brought forth a draft street cut moratorium ordinance to the Land Use Committee for initial discussions, whereby the purpose of the ordinance is to establish needed restrictions to minimize pavement degradation to the city's newly paved streets. At the February 18, 2019 work study session, the matter was discussed by the City Council and referred to the next regular meeting for action. Additionally, the city's Public Works Department has also updated the trench restoration detail within the newly adopted Public Works engineering standards and specifications to address utility trench repair standards for streets not covered by the proposed moratorium, and that's attached. Staff recommends adoption of an ordinance, thereby updating Port Orchard Municipal Code Chapter 12-04020 and 20-24080, and establishing regulations related to a street cut moratorium on newly paved streets within the city.
Mr. Diener.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance, thereby updating Port Orchard Municipal Code, chapters 12-04020 and 20-24080, and establishing regulations related to a street cut moratorium on newly paved streets within the city, with final form approved by the city attorney.
Second it.
In a second, is further discussion? This is a great tool. I mean, with our brand-new Tremont project that's getting close to being finished, and hopefully we'll have some other streets soon that we put new blacktop on, that we're not cutting them up 6 months later because of whatever reason for another project, so.
As I was listening to the staff's report, I was just thinking that, the citizens will probably never comment to us about this. The time they comment is when we pave a new street and we cut it or allow it to be cut. So, this is gonna be an unsung hero, I think, for a number of years.
All right, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapters 12 and 20, establishing regulations related to street cut memorandum moratorium on newly paved streets within the city. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We are to 7C, adoption of an ordinance approving the reclassification of the Human Resources Coordinator and Assistant Finance Director job positions to exempt status. Ms. Howard.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. It is necessary for the city to periodically review the duties and responsibilities of all employment positions. Human resources, finance, and other administrative personnel who require a high degree of knowledge and work independently qualify as administrative exempt. In reviewing the city's Human Resources Coordinator and Assistant Finance Director positions, their primary job responsibilities are exercising discretion and independent judgment with respect to a matter of significance, as well as performing work directly related with servicing the city. They accomplish the goals and deliverables which determines their exempt positions. Under the U.S. Department of Labor's Fair Labor Standards Act, both positions meet the applicable tests of job duties and salary to classify these positions as exempt from overtime. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt the ordinance approving the reclassification to exempt status for Human Resources Coordinator and Assistant Finance Director positions.
Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance approving the reclassification of the Human Resource Coordinator and Assistant Finance Director positions to an exempt status as presented.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ashby. Deb Howard is retiring on us, and what brought this to our attention is when we were reviewing her job duties and responsibilities, and we came to the conclusion that she should probably be an exempt position when we posted it, and then we further reflected on the fact that our Assistant Finance Director was an hourly employee too, and that didn't seem right, so it makes no adjustments to their pay range. They're just no longer hourly employees. They're salaried employees. So, Mr. Clausen?
Just off topic bit, do we need to pass an ordinance that restricts retirements?
You may not retire until you're
I-
90.
Only for human resource coordinators.
So I'm sad to see Deb go. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance approving the reclassification of the Human Resources Coordinator and Assistant Finance Director job positions to exempt status. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the
Thank you.
ordinance is passed. Thank you, Deb. On to 7D, approval of change orders number 14 through 18 to contract number 037-17 with Active Construction for the Tremont Widening Project. Mr. Dorsey.
Yes, Your Honor, council members. On February 26th, 2019, and I did have a typo in the title there. Change orders 12 and 13 of contract 03717 with Active Construction was approved, thereby bringing the current value of all change orders to date to a total of $1.26 million, or 1.26.2%, or 126.2% of the contingency value, which is $1 million. Tonight's action is for the approval of change orders 14, which is additional root barrier for the trees, at $46,012.71. Change order 15, which is the driveway revision on Roland, at $22,545.11. Change order 16, which the reestablishment of the traffic loops at Port Orchard Boulevard, and that's $73,244.42. And change order 17, which is additional asphalt for all the driveway reconnections, that's at $53.91. And change order 18, which is the additional storm runoff control, and that's at 80,000. Approval of these change orders brings the current value of all change orders to date at 1.483 and 0.484 million, or 148.4% of the contingency value. The city's CACM team and the contractor have updated the cost to complete value, and we're at 1.87 million. So the Public Works Department continues to search for the additional $1 million, and that search is not leaving any rock unturned. So staff recommends that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute change orders 14 through 18 with active construction in a total amount not to exceed $221,856.15.
Councilmember Lucarelli?
I move to authorize the mayor to execute change orders numbers 14 through 18 with Active Construction, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $221,856.15.
Second.
Councilmember Rosa Pepe seconded. Any questions? Mr. Dorsey? Okay. Mr. Diener?
So the reestablishment of the traffic loops, just for my understanding, that's just bringing that intersection back to the way it was, essentially?
Right. We know that we've had the loops have been disconnected for a year, and we've had those on timers.
Okay, so it's the control
actuators
loops.
in the
Okay,
ground.
got it.
Right. So that's why we've been playing with the timing east-west, and then somebody coming up from Port Orchard Boulevard, because the loops don't detect whether somebody's there or not. When we get at the end of the project, we need to reestablish those loops. Unfortunately, that was something that the disturbance of those loops wasn't included in the original design. So we're having to reestablish that. And we've looked at cameras versus loops, and cameras were like 3 times this amount. So we went with loops. Since we can put those in now and then have a 2-inch overlay over the top, and they'll be good to go.
Mr. Clausen?
Mark, is this project going to include repaving that intersection of the Boulevard and Tremont?
Yeah, you can, when you are on Port Orchard Boulevard, you can see that we're down. We're actually have included some additional paving. There were always paving at limits at that intersection, but we're going a little bit further on Port Orchard Boulevard because there's been some unraveling. We're going a little bit further towards the fire station.
Good.
And we're also paving up onto Canyon Court. We're going further to the north around that corner because, quite honestly, that road is in such, when it was originally platted in 1980-ish. When we did some trenching work in there, there's no way for us to actually repair our trenches and have anything to pave against. It's just crumbling. So the good news is all that paving, it looks like it's going to fall under our original paving number, and we're going to make sure we get out far enough to where we have a good product.
Good. Thank you.
Councilmember Diener?
Just one quick question. What is HMA?
Hot mix asphalt.
Okay, thank you.
So that's our paving budget.
We should do more of that.
Yes. It's expensive, though.
Well, no, I like doing more of the $53 ones.
The $53 ones, yes.
Yeah, I noticed that one too.
Yeah,
Well, again, that was the net. I mean, we had credits that were coming back on that work. And so, but we still need to account for every penny, yeah.
Yeah. Other questions? Okay. You'd be voting to approve change orders number 14 through 18 to contract number 037-17 with Active Construction, Inc. for the Tremont Widening Project. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to expense reimbursement. This one's me. So this is approval of reimbursable expenses for police chief candidates. So during the hiring process of department directors, is standard practice for other jurisdictions to reimburse top candidates for their travel expenses during the interview process. As it is important to find the right candidate for the city and our community, staff is asking the city council to approve a maximum of $1,000 per candidate and no more than $5,000 for the overall travel expenses. So we've, and when we put this together, I thought I had more out-of-state candidates than I have now. I've got one less. So, but the intent is still there. So, Mr. Clausen?
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize or approve the mayor's authorization or authorizing the reimbursement expenses for the police chief candidates for a maximum of $1,000 per candidate, but not more than $5,000 for all candidates.
Second.
And then secondly, will this, even with this expenditure, if we maximized it, and I don't believe we will, we'll still be within our budgeted amount for the recruitment process that we put in the budget. We've done this very, very, I guess, frugally with the consultant, but I'm very pleased with the process. So we had 18 candidates. I had 6, narrowed it down to 6. One candidate, out-of-state candidate, has dropped out, so we'll be interviewing 5 individuals on the 27th of this month. So it's an all-day process.
Is it all day, one day, or is it
All
multi?
day, one day. For the panels, I've got 3 panels. I've got a director's panel, a citizens group, and then a mayor's panel, and they visit all 3 of those panels. Bandy will be sending out a public notice here soon. That day will end, and then we will have a public forum here in the council chambers, and I hope all of you in the community can attend. At, what did we say, I think it's 6:30 that night on the 27th. They won't be all 5. I plan to weed it down to 2 or 3 finalists for that process here. And then the next morning, I intend to, based on the observations, interview them a second time, and within a day or two, make a decision. My goal is, if everything works as planned, to bring you a contract in the first meeting in April for a new police chief. So,
Thank you.
all right, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? With that, we'll be voting to approve reimbursement expenses for police chief candidates. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are to our last business item, which is 7F, approval of the February 26th council meeting minutes. I'm sure somebody was gone, and that's why.
Yeah, I would move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Diener. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, and 1 abstention from Mr. Clausen.
Yes.
Okay, we are to our, I have no discussion items tonight, and council committee reports. Don't believe finance has met, but,
No, actually, the Finance Committee is scheduled to meet on the 26th at 5:30 p.m. here in City Hall.
okay. Make sure that gets in my calendar. Can you send an invite out for that? Yep. To all of us? Okay, thank you. And Economic Development Tourism met yesterday.
We did. We had a meeting yesterday. We had 2 guests join us, in addition to the business community that's usually in attendance. Port Commissioners Stokes and Stracklejon met us, and we had a discussion of the waterfront events that we put on, or the nonprofits, the various organizations put on, and how the port and the city can partner together to make those even better events and to eliminate some of the stresses that both the port and the city feel because of the events. There was discussions on again, stress on some of the facilities and how those can be managed and mitigated a little better. It was a very good discussion. I was very pleased that both the 2 commissioners were here and very engaged. And Commissioner Stokes will be, I believe, a regular attendee at our economic development meetings in the future. We also discussed our tourism strategic plan that the council approved maybe in 2017. We update it, just review it every every spring before the event season starts. And I believe, I don't know, Brandy, if that has to come back for approval or what we do at that point.
Yes, I'll bring back to the council a resolution with a new exhibit attached.
Okay, thank you. And then we had, Nick did his PSRC Vision 2050, the draft planning alternatives. He gave the committee an update on that so that we will all be prepared at, I believe, our work study next week, because a response letter to that, I think, has to go out fairly soon, and he's hoping to get all the council members up to speed, so he spent some time discussing that at Economic Development. We also had a letter presented to us by Kathleen Wilson as president of the Port Orchard Bay Street Association, and the association is requesting a change to the parking hours downtown. And our committee referred that to a work study. Hopefully we can get it on the April work study. So anyway, the POBSA is requesting that we make modifications to the parking hours downtown. And with that, we adjourned, and we'll meet again the second Monday in April.
Okay. Thank you for your report. Utilities Committee, looks like
Yes, we met February 27th. I actually copied the work plan. Could you please pass that down to any members who didn't receive it? Mark Dorsey or whomever, staff, put together the utility department work plan, and it has a breakdown of all the dates and the projected dates for completion and the process of what's going on. And I thought this was quite useful for all of the council members. Answered some questions that people had been having. So thank you so much for that update. We also talked about some legislative reports regarding some bills which may have already changed by now. Kind of old news there. But just some highlights. Well, 13, drilling will probably take place in April. Quite a lot is going on. And as you know, the Marina Pump Station, we are working on that, retrofit or rebuild, and the costs of both of those. Another thing is an update on well number 9. That's moving towards completion. March startup mode, is that correct? In April, we'll be online with that. Oh, wow. With that, we scheduled our next meeting for March 18th at 9:30 a.m. And unless Mark has something more to add.
I would actually propose at this point, I think, given other things we're working on, we should probably just go to April 6th.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that's this meeting was delayed because of.
It was. It was so close.
Yeah, I think we should push that.
Okay, so April 16th.
April 16th.
sounds like that next meeting is until April. And Sewer Advisory Committee is the next day, April 17th.
Yes.
Okay, you probably have it
Is
now.
that the 16th or the 15th?
No, it's fine.
It'd be the 15th for the
15th,
for
April
the
15th.
utilities it's a Monday.
Yeah.
Monday's the
Oh,
15th.
the 15th? Thank you.
Good catch, Fred.
Yes, it is. Okay. Land Use Committee, have you met?
No.
Okay, March 25th looks like your next scheduled meeting date. And lodging tax, have you?
Actually, we did not have a meeting last week, and Brandy, I don't know if you want to comment, that was actually a meeting with the awardees of the lodging tax. And,
So last evening, or last week, Janine and I have held a meeting in the evening to help the applicants, actually the awardees of the lodging tax for 2019 funds, to walk over, to go over with them how to seek reimbursement and what types of
reimbursements are eligible and not eligible. We also walked through the JLARC reporting, which is the required reporting that they have to report to the city, which the city has to report to the state, that talks about the numbers of attendees that they projected and estimated their projected numbers of people that came into the area, either for day visits, overnight, paid overnight accommodations. So we stepped through that. That was a suggestion that a lot of the recipients asked for last year, and so we implemented it this year, and most of them will continue to be out, and we'll seek reimbursement for their funds that they receive.
So we have a meeting set up with NOAA to talk about the incoming funds for this year. And also, we've had a discussion we talked about before about what is a reserve, what is a surplus, what do the funds look like. And also at the economic development meeting, there was a request to look at holding funds in advance for any new activities instead of, saying 100,000. Amount is there that we look at maybe awarding 95 and that 5 be held for any possibly new events. So we're going to meet, we put out I can't remember under what we do, thank you, to find out. We're going to meet one of the first weeks in April, and we'll come back and report to the committee about how the feelings are about it. That's the council, excuse me. More to follow.
All right, thank you for your report. Festival of Chimes and Lights?
Yes, we met on February 27th, and we reviewed a draft reservation form for the trees, the planters downtown. We're working on that and should have that up in the next several weeks. We got some feedback from the Port of Bremerton about some concerns during, they said, the Festival of Chimes and Lights, where there was some vandalism down at the other end of town. And when it was reviewed, it was discovered that the vandalism took place after the event had actually shut down. So, as much as it wasn't our fault, kind of thing. But what we are looking at is either more lighting or more people down there, a little more activity down at the other end of town. And we're working with the port to take care of this. Something I had not even known about until Mr. Weaver had come in and shared with us about some of the vandalism. So, but he also said, on the other hand, that with the lighted boats, that there were 51 boats that actually participated this year, which is the largest number ever, and 1,300 people actually voted on their favorites. So, it's such a lot of participation, and he said that to them was amazing. So we'll continue that. We'll just be working on the problem of having that area a little bit, it's just too isolated down at the other end.
Cindy, what does he mean by the other end of town? The gazebo?
By the gazebo,
Okay.
bathroom doors were broken down, and there was vandalism to both sets of bathrooms. So that was after our event, but still, there's activity down there, and we're working on all of that. We also were challenged about possibly having some additional porta potties, and again, down at that further end near the gazebo, we may need to be looking at that. We don't have that in our budget, but that's something that we can be talking about.
Is that where Santa is?
Yes. Okay. So there was even a question asked if we should move the location where Santa ends up. We have quite a lot of time to work on that, so we'll
Probably
be
get
doing that.
sponsors.
Excuse me?
You could probably get sponsors.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that was mainly what our discussion was about that evening. Our next meeting will be March 18th, 3:30 here at City Hall.
Other outside agencies? Anything you want to report from KRCC?
I don't really have anything for KRCC right now. I'm trying to remember.
We had a presentation from the
The
census.
census and clean air.
And an update. So my daughter that week was hired by the Census Bureau. She's the one of two facilitators and recruiters in Kitsap County to recruit volunteers. So she'll be out attending the chamber meeting on Thursday to which has her flyers. They're hiring people to conduct the census. It's a great job for her because she's going to go back to school next year and help her fill in that time between there. So we'll see her around. I'm sure she's going to come visit a council meeting and talk to us about the census and the importance of it. Mayor's report. I already spoke about the Community Service Day. I hope most of us or all of us can do that on the 27th. Lots of great projects. Probably the heavy lift is going to be 100 yards, which is 10 dump truckloads of topsoil at Van Zee. And we're going to break that out. We are going to knock the piles down a little bit. Public Works has assured me we're not going to be wheelbarrowing. It's more raking and spreading. So then trucking it around with wheelbarrows would be inefficient. So I've heard that Kitsap Transit has a capital budget request for a little over $1 million for the Carlisle. The Coast Guard has wants some safety improvements to it, so I've let our lobbyists know. Of course, our requests come first, but the Carlisle is important to our community and our connection in the ferry service, so any assistance they can provide would be appreciated to Transit's lobbyist. Exciting news, Mr. Dorsey received the governor's appointment to the Public Utilities Board here, Public Works Board. So now the legislature just has to fund it. So he's got some dollars to award, but it was a very a bit political process, and the AWC Board of Directors actually weeded through a number of candidates, and I had the opportunity to vouch for Mr. Dorsey's qualifications since I'm a board member, and so he was the top candidate forwarded to the governor. I gave all of you copies of this article at the Puget Sound Business Journal. Wes Larson from Sound West and is featured on the cover, and there's 3 pages of an article, and talks about Port Orchard in there and the opportunities that the Opportunity Zone present. It's a great article, and I wanted y'all to see that. And then, Mr. Dorsey sporting a new haircut. Mr. Bond even dressed up and brought a sports coat, and I came in a T-shirt that says "Imagine Port Orchard" for last night's public facilities presentation. I felt our group and our community, we knocked it out of the park. We really did. Gosh, I would estimate more than 100 people there. I was
Standing room only.
Standing room only there. I was a little disappointed in the Public Facilities Board. They just, their comments and their attitude, there was ways to ask questions, and this isn't going to be easy. And we've got a lot more work to do, but this project is very worthwhile, and we're going to make it happen. So Cindy and Scott were there.
Beck.
And Beck, were you there too? I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Is that a fair assessment of?
Yeah, I think with one of them particularly who maybe.
I made a personal phone call to that person this morning, and he is supportive of our project. And I said, "Gosh,
is that
you
our
wouldn't."
Former county commissioner?
Yes, and I said, "Well, you wouldn't know that by, I know you felt you were asking a question, but it really came across as a statement." And
Yeah. I would agree. The other thing that was disappointing is that things ran so long that not everybody got a chance to speak that would like to have spoken. And I think it would have been nice to somehow tie in what was presented and comments to the future of Port Orchard as a transit center here, and how that density is going to have to be accommodated, and it would be hand in glove with this project.
Kitsap Bank spoke to it. I spoke to it. Kathleen Wilson spoke to it. All 3 port commissioners spoke to it. And like I say, I don't think we could have done anything any better on the presentation. And those are the poster boards that Rice Fergus Miller produced, and I snuck out of the room with because I felt they belonged here for a while. So with that, we have if you haven't noticed, there's a 24-foot sailboat that's been tied up to the DeKalb Pier for a few months. And it's a derelict vessel that was drifting about, and So we've, DNR doesn't have any money to deal with it. The legislature could change that. We've gotten a quote by Yachtfish, which is right next to it, to have it demolished. We only have a couple $1,000s in our budget for that type of activity. The quote is $5,000 to get rid of it. We could, wait till the currents are taking it towards the Navy, but I don't think we'd make any friends. They might sink it, but I think the right thing to do is to have.
Use it for target practice?
Yeah, I don't know. Noah was gonna move aboard, but he went and checked it out, and it wasn't very nice. So the right thing to do is go have it demolished. We're going to apply to get reimbursed, and it's possible, but we can't make that assumption that that would happen. So I just wanted to check in with you. If I see heads nodding, we'll just go do it. It would require a budget amendment of a few $1,000s, but we need to get rid of the boat and get it off our dock before the boating season starts.
Do we know how it came to be?
It's one of the vessels that was anchored out in the bay, and I asked the chief. I said, so a fair question I'm going to be asked is, where are we on that code?
I was just thinking the same thing.
And
Would that have
he
prevented-
said he would follow. The graveyard sergeant is supposedly has that task, and he said he would have something to share in the next 30 days. That's what he told me. So, but I think that code would at least give us a tool to get rid of those vessels so that we don't have maybe many of those type of problems. I can't recall the last time I know we've done it before, but not in the last 4 years. So we will get that taken care of. Saw Dave Taggart of Swim Deck in the lobby today, and he was reopening his business tonight. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Dave and wish him the best there. He's had some health problems and had 4-way bypass surgery and had to close for a number of months. So he says, well, at least I missed the snowstorm. At least a positive outlook. And then last, I've mentioned this a couple times, and Brandy's pinging on me. It isn't a budget year. Do we want to have a retreat this year? And if we do, I'd like to just know what it is we want to have a retreat. What, is it long-range planning of some sort, and what the subject matters are? I just don't want to ask of a day of everybody if we don't have a subject to.
I thought you've kind of made it clear that we finished what we started, project-wise. So, I mean, from my perspective, unless there's something that's pressing from a long range, I think that's my personal opinion would be we finish what we start, and then
Start planning
next year.
for more. Yeah,
That would be my opinion.
we definitely need to have one in the spring of next year, heading into the next biennial budget, so we can give direction to staff for that. I think the burning issue is what we're going to come forward with for an application for KRCC for a transportation project, but I think we can handle that workload at a work study. I don't know that we need to devote a special day to that. So,
That was only my opinion, so.
yeah,
I actually would love to have a retreat. Maybe not as long,
okay.
but I think a lot comes out in a retreat that's valuable, including maybe even looking into the impact of our projects, or sources of funding if we don't have the district funding come through, or as much as we want. But I for one, would like to have one. But I might be the only one.
I'd like to think about it.
Okay. I guess
I don't see the need for a full day, certainly, but.
Okay.
No, not a whole day.
All right, so if you got me subject matters that you would want to discuss in a retreat, then I can work with staff and try to develop a plan, or maybe those subjects can be incorporated into existing work studies too, depending on how large the topic is.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just as a thought, and I'm like Scott, I want to think about it a bit, but are there a lot of items, work study kind of items that have stacked up to where, we could use it more as a work study than a retreat and clear off some of the stuff on the agenda? I mean, I'd be willing to maybe it's half and half.
Our agendas, far-reaching agendas aren't that heavy.
Okay.
They really aren't.
I love seeing all you guys, but just to meet to say hi is probably not real high on my agenda.
And have
but,
lunch with us.
Yeah.
I think we have 2 items, now 3 because of parking on the next work study. And they're both Mr. Bond, and then the one that's coming forward, actually, whether it's Mr. Bond or Mr. Dorsey on the parking, that merchants want to discuss with us, so. Okay. With that, department heads, Mr. Dorsey. Clean shaven, Mr. Dorsey.
Gets appointed to a board and cleans himself up.
You slip with the razor? Is that what went up too high?
Didn't work.
Trying to give her a different focal point.
I'm like that scene out of Star Wars when Darth Vader removes his mask for the first time.
Okay. Mr. Bond, or no, Mr. Crocker, I'm sorry.
The only comment I had is we're continuing to implement our new software. Councilmember Ashby caught it today on the accounts payable. She knows the new presentation of the reports.
I did too,
So if you get a second look at it, take a look at it. We're playing with different reports, see what's working best. Again, the goal is to make it really user-friendly, easy to absorb the information, summary level with the detail to support it. And I think you'll notice that in some of these AP reports. So I'm really excited about that. And we're going live with payroll this week, as well as time entry for all our employees. So big time as far as conversions going on right now. So real exciting, but a lot of lifting going on as we're kind of working our way through any challenges. So thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Dorsey, boy, I gotta hear it.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight? Yeah, wow. I do like the jacket, though.
I'm just glad that you've set the bar that we can wear T-shirts to council meetings. I'm going to do custom Port Orchard T-shirts for every meeting.
Custom T-shirts, all right. Ms. Cates.
Nothing for me tonight.
Ms. Howard?
Well, I guess this will be the last time I'll report on this, but let's see. We have last Monday, we started our new police officer for community services in court. She's on board. And then we've hired an office assistant 2 position over at Public Works Engineering. She started Monday. We made an offer to a new municipal court clerk, and so she will be starting April 8th. And then we did our first round of first interviews for the closed circuit TV Public Works person. And then next Tuesday, we'll interview for another Public Works, the heavy equipment operator. And I'm hoping that we're getting close to setting up another police oral board. We've got about 5 candidates, possibly 6, that will have an oral board ready to go in the next couple weeks. And then my position has been posted. And I just wanted to thank the council for having the opportunity to work for the city. It's been a wonderful experience, and I thank you for your support, as well as the mayor and the staff. I've had great people to work with, so thank you.
She's got us doing wellness bingo right now.
I know it. You're determined to win, too.
I never win anything.
I know.
And I'm determined. All right. Brandy, what do you have for us?
The only thing that I wanted to share with you is that I did receive a report from EVI. They're the production company that's working on the 3 short videos. So he's got 2 scenarios typed out. I sent it to the Economic Development Committee members. So they're going to kind of hopefully massage through it, look at it, give me some pointers so I can give to the video operator, and then hopefully have something to you guys April work study. So that's all I have.
All right. Yeah, it just came yesterday or today. Yes.
It just forwarded to you guys, so.
All right, with that, anything for the good of the order? Okay. I will, our second citizen comment period. Wish to address the council. Jerry?
I know we got a letter, but about how long do we have before the finance kicks in, so where we have to, if we're on automatic pay from our bank, have to make the changes?
Are you speaking to the conversion in the utility billing system? So our utility billing should be going live in April. So we will continue to be notified and send out messages. We have some information posted on the web. So if you go there, you can find that, or you can call us. But we'll reach out to you again in April and May.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think probably, Jerry, because you're on the same cycle I am, is I think your next billing is when those changes will go into effect, not, because we've got a bill right now in our hand, and we're on the old system.
Yep.
The bills that are due right now are being processed the current method, and then we get bills every other month, so we'll
It's
get.
just if you have, like, I have Banker Online, I don't even think about it. It's just
Right.
I've set an automatic amount. And
Yeah.
so
Yep,
a lot
you'll
of
have to
times.
you'll have to touch it probably with your next bill, which is, we read those meters, we just read those, I just got that bill this month, so March, so maybe May for our area downtown.
Okay.
I think it'd be that May 1st bill.
Okay, I came across it, and I don't know how, but a lot of the businesses weren't aware of the reason why the 2-hour was changed for parking downtown, because they're quite upset that if somebody goes out to lunch, they don't have time to go shop at the businesses. And
We haven't changed parking
No.
as long as it's been 2 hours forever.
Well, yeah, but it came about because there were businesses downtown that were parking on the street and parking in front of other people's businesses and not moving their cars until their 4 hours was up. So that's how come the 2-hour came about. But they don't seem to be aware of why the change was made, but they were quite upset with the city because then their customers would decide not to come and visit them because they didn't have enough time in a 2-hour and go to lunch or something downtown. At least that was the gist of a number of people on Facebook. And it was quite a long, tirade of a lot of people. So just letting you know.
Okay.
So,
Thanks, Rita. What I do know is, we have been getting a fair number of parking complaints, and it's because we have a new parking enforcement person, and she's doing her job, and in enforcing our parking regulations. She's making the rounds in the time she's supposed to be, and so parking tickets have been up, and as a result, some folks aren't happy that they violated the 2-hour or 4-hour, or in some cases parked where they shouldn't have parked, which is noticed for no parking. So it's as long as you obey the regulations, I don't think you get a ticket. So, but with that, we're going to head into an executive session pursuant to RCW potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230.1101I, and I think we'll start with 20 minutes, and we may need to extend. There will be no action taken afterwards, but I will adjourn the meeting after the executive session ends.